Welcome to American Diplomat. Our stories heard only here. I'm Pete Romero, and with me is Laura Bennett.
Laura Bennett, hello.
So Laura, we've got the second of a three-part series on Afghanistan and what they call SIVs, Special Immigrant Visas, for those people who work with us in the embassy and with our military there, particularly since things are starting to unravel a little bit in terms of the U.S. pullout there. We had our first episode with Ambassador Tony Wayne and a gentleman who is still in Afghanistan and who worked very closely with U.S. forces, particularly Pathfinders, Ranger forces in Afghanistan. But today we're talking to Ryan Crocker. Ryan was ambassador to Afghanistan and Iraq, which is very germane to what we're talking about today, but also Pakistan, Syria, Kuwait, Lebanon, 39 years in the Foreign Service, Farsi and Arabic in terms of languages. But what I was struck with more than anything else was that I would say that he was probably one of the more successful English majors. So there is a life after being an English major, I guess. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks for having me, Pete.
Also, and after we speak with Ryan, we'll talk with our friend who is in Afghanistan. She likes us to use the name Tuba for her today, and that is not her name, because if she uses her real name, she will increase her rather present danger as someone stuck in Afghanistan in need of our assistance leaving. American Diplomat is a project of the American Academy of Diplomacy with support from the American Foreign Service Association and the Bush School of Government and Public Service at Texas A&M University. We're talking. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
Listen, I know that you were a signatory of a letter that some retired Foreign Service officers sent to Secretary of Defense and Secretary of State about our concern about these folks who helped us, work with us in the embassy, and also our military brethren, and now what might happen to them. But before we get into that, could you tell us what you think is going to happen in the next couple of months in Afghanistan? We're out early. The U.S. military is out early, or will be out completely by the end of August. What do you see in terms of the next few months in Afghanistan?
Pete, my idea of an extreme long-range prediction in the greater Middle East would be, say, a week from Sunday. So to look at a couple of months down the road in this volatile environment is pretty hard to do. But sadly, I think the future is now in many respects. The president's decision to execute a total withdrawal on very short notice has clearly emboldened the Taliban, as it has demoralized the government of Afghanistan and its security forces. So we are seeing now the Taliban on the move, in particular, but also moving strategically elsewhere to take control of border crossing points, effectively saying to all and sundry, we now control these borders. So I'm afraid what we're going to see is ongoing gains by the Taliban, further erosion, I think, of the Afghan government, and a whole lot of violence.
Yeah.
This is not going to be the Taliban taking Kabul next week. I would anticipate we're going to have a pretty bloody civil war starting up over there as anti-Taliban elements, particularly from the non-Pashtun minorities like the Tajiks, who, of course, had been the Northern Alliance before 9/11 and held the northern third of the country. So what I do see is increasing violence, increasing strategic gains by the Taliban, but without a clear path to take power. What I don't see are intra-Afghan negotiations that will have any meaning at all, because the Taliban has made it pretty clear. They got what they want, they got us out, and they will be creating facts on the ground.
What do you see as the consequences for people who have assisted with, or regions that have supported U.S. forces during the time we've been there?
Again, I think the future really is now. I'm on the advisory board for a terrific NGO, No One Left Behind. We have been working the Afghan issue now for some time. These folks who served us so loyally and so well, both for the military and for the civilians, are now at great risk. Again, the president said in his statement a week ago that once the decision is made, speed is of the essence, and we are moving with speed. Unfortunately, there's no indication that the administration thought at all about the SIV applicants and that program. Now they are rushing to catch up. Commendable, obviously. We've seen some developments now with apparently our base in Doha, Qatar, being the destination point for those still in process with direct flights back to the US for those who are already eligible. But it is something they've had to really pull out of their pockets.
But Ryan, there is a process, and it's this SIV, special interest visa, for those folks who've worked for us. The embassy had closed down for a couple of weeks because COVID was raging. The interviews shut down. They were doing a lot of the analysis on the cases back here, of course, but they're behind the curve now that the military has pulled out early. So is the SIV process, if you're just starting that process now, and it takes sometimes years for people, is that just obsolete at this point? Are we talking more about just evacuating people who are in harm's way?
Who helped the US?
Well, again, I am not privy to the administration's thinking on this issue. As I said a moment ago, I think it's very important. Clearly, they did not have a plan for the Afghans, some 18,000, who were somewhere in the visa process. Look, it takes something like 3 years to process all the way through 14 separate steps. It is ridiculously bureaucratic and slow moving. Again, through No One Left Behind, we have pressed both this administration and its predecessor. We have pressed in Congress to streamline this, to realize that people's lives are on the line. What we will not see, I think, is a dramatic escalation in speed of processing. So I would very much hope, Pete, as you suggest, that the administration is getting set to pull everyone out who had an association with this and sort it out later in a safe place, like Al-Udeid base. We seem to have an agreement with the Qataris to use it to this end. But boy, it is moving real fast. And for those folks who risk their lives to help our efforts, it is looking pretty grim.
So Ryan, could you tell me if there's one person in particular that really stands out in your mind in terms of being an interpreter or cultural advisor, an FSN, Foreign Service National Embassy, that just really, when you think about the value and the valor of these people, just really comes to mind first for you?
It's a great question, Pete. I would preface a reply by saying that unlike the military, the State Department and its embassies abroad have always relied very heavily on our Foreign Service National contingents. There are far more Foreign Service nationals staffing our embassies around the world than there are American diplomats. And what that means is we just do not operate without them. They are absolutely critical to the success of American diplomacy abroad. And this is not new. What is new is the set of circumstances that we've been talking about. I'd give you an example going back all the way to the early 80s in Beirut, Israeli invasion. They were surrounding the city. I was the senior officer at the embassy in West Beirut, the Muslim-controlled sector, and we finally got the order to evacuate completely, cross Palestinian and Lebanese militia lines and get up to the ambassador's residence, which was in the Lebanese armed forces controlled zone. On the way out in our motorcade, we were stopped at a flying checkpoint. Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, who a few years earlier had kidnapped and murdered the American ambassador, the worst of the bad, if you will. So they flagged us down, but before the cars even stopped rolling, our senior security FSN had jumped out the door, raced up to the checkpoint, got right in the face of the young militiaman there, and was screaming and yelling that we would have his head. This is a critically important convoy. It's not just your career, buddy. It's your life that's on the line. You let us go. You let us go now. You got 2 seconds to think about it. And it worked. He just bluffed our way through that. Had we been trying that on our own, I don't think I'd be here having this interview with you. So again, in Afghanistan, it goes back a long way too. I had the privilege of reopening our embassy formally at the beginning of January in 2002. We had a small contingent of Afghan foreign nationals who had stayed at their posts throughout the long period the embassy was shut down. They were crucial in getting us started, but we owed them an even bigger debt than that. When the Taliban took Kabul in the mid-90s, they had sent a team over to the embassy and basically told our FSNs who were there at the gate, get out of the way, we're breaking into the nest of spies.
Wow.
And our lead FSN, the whole team said, okay, but look, we got to have 45 minutes notice so we can get as far away from this place as possible. The Americans have it completely wired with explosives, and it's going to go sky high if you go through these gates. The Taliban all kind of looked at each other, said, okay, we'll be back. They never came back. That compound was never breached, again, because of the courage and ingenuity of some really smart, really brave Foreign Service nationals.
These are very helpful illustrations that help us understand from a historic perspective why it is so important that we do assist these people, because we can't do business internationally as a government without them.
And I would just add to that, if I could, Laura and Pete, as I said, I'm on the board of No One Left Behind, which is the bulk of the SIV eligible and applicants work for the military, either directly or through contractors. And one result of all of this is that our sisters and brothers in uniform now have a far greater appreciation of what foreign nationals bring to their efforts. Now, we've always had it because that's always been the way we operated. But now our military has developed it as well. They know what the interpreters did for them. And the correct word is just that, interpreter, not translator. They are interpreting a foreign culture, a foreign society to our armed forces who have no background in it at all. So I think over the long run, we can get these people to safety and get them to safety now. It's been a very important educational effort, again, for our sisters and brothers in uniform.
Well, that's excellent. And we very much appreciate this. This helps us contextualize our interviews with people who are in dire need of expedited some kind of help getting out of the country where they have helped us and made themselves the target of great violence, if not death. Thank you very much, Ambassador Crocker.
Okie doke. Thank you all.
Okay, so Laura, who's up next?
We will call her Tuba. She can't use her real name on our show for fear of retribution. And this is the very reason that she is a candidate for and very much deserving of and in need of a special immigrant visa. Welcome, Tuba. How are you? Tuba is talking to us from Afghanistan. Hello, Tuba.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tuba from Kabul, Afghanistan. I have worked with the U.S. very sensitive project of USAID Women in Government.
When did you begin working with the United States?
I have started my career in 2018 as an intern in USAID, one of the most sensitive projects.
And what was the project?
The project was Women in Government sectors. So the contribution of women in government.
And your job was to help women gain jobs in the Afghan government?
Yes, in Afghan government, and to increase their percentage from 1% to 15%.
And this is what the Afghan government wanted?
Yes, and we did to some point.
So you did achieve some of these goals. And what was your educational background?
I have studied Bachelor in Business Administration. That was a good point for me, and I have started my career from USA. That was a big job for me. So I like to do this. So the people who are not letting their women to get job, we help them to get job in government. And the most important why I have worked with US government, I want to help the mission of promoting women's rights.
So let me ask you a question. When you were recruiting women to work in the Afghan government, did that involve you going out into the public and actually recruiting women from colleges, from other schools, talking to their families, that sort of thing? In other words, were you exposed that way by the nature of your work?
Yes, of course. We have lots of people in our list, and they are in ministries and schools and colleges, and collect them to come in our project. We provide training for them, and after that, we introduce them to government sectors. And we had many meetings with government officials to recruit our interns.
I see. And what happened? At what point did you stop working for US aid?
The point was here that I received lots of threat messages, threat phone calls, even they have follow-ups and lots of threats I have faced.
Lots of threats.
What kind of threats? Telephone calls, people following you?
People are following me, the phone calls, the messages, and they are sending me the photos which I have worked with the USA, my activities. They have all of that with them.
So you stopped working for AID when these threats got bad. How is your life now?
My life is on danger now. Now I'm at home. It's almost 1 year that I'm at home. I'm not getting out because of the risk that I'm facing. So I cannot go out. As you know, the situation in Afghanistan nowadays.
And you live with your mother, the two of you.
Yes, we both are together here and I cannot go out.
And your mother does the shopping and
Yeah.
everything that you need in the outside world.
Yes, and my mother is doing all the shoppings and outside work.
I see.
And she's not allowing me to go out.
Yeah.
So, Tuba, do you have any feeling that maybe the Taliban has or will change its philosophy or its dogma about women in the workplace?
I don't think so that they are changing their minds.
Mhm.
They are the same as they was.
Mhm.
They are not allowing any woman to go out and work.
Right.
They say that if a woman go out, that would be not good for them. And then Islam not allow them to go out. So they are following that rules.
And what do they do to women who work outside of the home?
If they find a woman who is working outside, they will not leave her to life anymore. They're just cutting their heads. Yes, of course.
Wow. So you have applied for a special immigrant visa. What's the status of that? Will you be able to leave the country anytime soon?
I don't think so because I have applied in 2018 for SIV and my document was not complete. I have completed in 2020 and it's almost 10 and 11 months that I haven't get my approval yet. So without approval, I don't think so.
Have you had your interview?
No, I'm waiting for the approval. My supervisor has already confirmed. My HR have also confirmed. Just I'm waiting for approval. It's 10 months.
10 months.
Have you heard any news that you might be able to leave Afghanistan while the approval process continues?
Yes, in an evacuation. In other words, you would get the visa later in another country.
Yeah, I have heard about the eviction of the people who have worked with governments, USA people. I don't think that I will be part of them. If I don't have my approval, how they can get me?
Oh,
So Tuba, what would your message to the American people be?
My message is for you all guys, that as I have worked honestly with you, shoulder to shoulder with the US government, please help us. Do not lift us here with these people, with Taliban.
and if you're able to come to the United States, what would you like to do when you're here?
If I get there, I will start my MBA, and after that, I will do some works there.
Well, I would much rather know that you got your MBA than know that you were forced to remain in Afghanistan.
Thank you.
Tuba, do you have any more comments?
Oh, I have something. As you know about the Taliban, they have taken over the nearest province of Afghanistan. So they are so near to Kabul.
Oh,
Well, listen, we are doing our best over here to make sure that the U.S. government completes its responsibility in an efficient way, and people who put their lives on the line by working with us, in your case, helping women get jobs and doing all the right things. This really gets to the heart of why we're in Afghanistan, whether we liked it or not, and how we can leave in a way that protects those people just like you who should be protected.
and we're very grateful that you could share your story with us.
Thank you.
American Diplomat was produced with the cooperation of the American Foreign Service Association and the Bush School of Government and Public Service at Texas A&M University. Additional funding was provided by the Delavan Foundation, the Rep Local Foundation, and the Cisco Family Fund. Thank you for joining us. And we have music from Pete's friend, Abigail Lauder, who plays the tablas, improbably enough, as a suburban Washingtonian regular American who just was seized by a love of the tabla.